Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's FPL Maverick, and today we're just going to have a quick look at my Game Week 10 results, see how my team did in the previous game week, and look forward to Game Week 11. So let's start with my Game Week 10. Starting in goal, Fabianski, he did play, and he got 2 points against Forest. Now, Verbruggen got 3 points, so that's, in hindsight, probably a bit better that we went for Verbruggen, but it's not the end of the world either way. Moving on to our defensive line. This is seeming to be the trend in defense. Premiums are just not doing as well as we'd hope. They cost a lot, especially the likes of Trent. Gabriel only got 2 points against Newcastle. They lost 1-0. It wasn't a great performance from Arsenal. Liverpool didn't do particularly well either. I've got Robertson on the bench who just didn't play. Konza did play, but conceded a lot of goals. Moving on to the midfield, we have Johnson, who got 8 points, did very well for us. Burmo got 3 points, had the Monday fixture. It just didn't really go to plan, but he is owned by 41.1% of the player base, so it didn't hurt too much that he didn't do great. Palmer got 3 points. At the end of the day, wasn't too much of a miss, as he is owned by half the player base. And Rogers got 9 points, and this is brilliant as he has really come into his own in the last 4 or 5 game weeks, really starting to get those numbers at such a low price. Solanke, I was so close to getting rid of him, but he came in with 2 goals and an assist, 16 points. Amazing haul. Wood has been going from strength to strength, playing West Ham. He's come through with 7 points. Amazing. Only 6.5 million. And Haaland, our captain. Now, we were thinking between Haaland and Mbeumo and Palmer. I was never going to captain Solanke. So, Haaland, I'll take it. A lot of people owned him, 70%, and that has gone down now, to be fair. A lot of people are getting rid of Haaland, bringing in the likes of Salah, who have really been doing well. And a lot of people are actually looking at bringing in the likes of Saka now, because coming into game week 12 very soon, it's going to be a good idea to have the likes of Saka, Palmer, Salah. A lot of people are looking at the Wolves assets, the Cunha, Strand Larsens. It's going to be very interesting from game week 12. So if you've got your wild card, I'd hold off until game week 12. But looking at going into game week 11, we're starting Fabianski in goal as they do have Everton. But if Areola plays, Verbruggen comes on. They're playing against Manchester City, which isn't ideal, but it is what it is. From game week 12 on, Verbruggen gets better fixtures. Gabriel is playing against Chelsea. Again, it's not ideal, but we'll go from there. From game week 12, it gets good. I'm looking at replacing out my defensive line. I'm going to be getting rid of Trent, but this week we're going to keep him against Aston Villa. I like the look of it, and hopefully he does something. I've brought in Aït-Nouri for Robertson, as Robertson's not been getting consistent gameplay, and Aït-Nouri is playing Southampton. I'm not necessarily hoping for defensive returns, but for the potential attacking returns that Aït-Nouri provides, I'm willing to do that swap, and he is much cheaper, which allows me to look at getting in the likes of Saka in the next couple game weeks. Moving on to the midfield, we've got Johnson, who has been amazing for Spurs, playing against Ipswich at home, 6.7 million, 10% owned. I'd say he is still a differential, so a great option, but I wouldn't be having him from this point on now. Game week 12 on, it gets start getting a bit tricky for Spurs, so let's not necessarily look at them, but for this game week, I think they're perfect. Mbeumo playing Bournemouth. Again, Mbeumo has been one of the most the pick you need in your team. If you didn't have him, you have missed out. You've missed out on a lot of points in the last 5, 6, 7 game weeks. 7.8 million now. I think he was 7 million. So that's a big, big, big difference. Playing Bournemouth, 41.1% owned. Really, really like Mbomo. If you don't have him, get him because his fixtures are actually still getting better. Palmer plays against Arsenal. Now, there is a little bit of doubt on Palmer, but I don't think that's anything really. We're going to keep an eye on him, but Palmer is going to be fit, more than likely, for Arsenal. Semenyo next against Brentford away. I really like Semenyo. He takes a lot of shots. He gets into great positions. He was man of the match against City last week, scored 10 points. So this is a player that I think is going to become a must-have in the upcoming game weeks, because from game week 12, his fixtures start getting really good. And at 8% owned, he is a great differential, 5.6 million. I personally think he's amazing. I've had him for a few weeks now, anticipating this. Moving on to the forward line, we have Solanke. Now, Solanke, I am going to be getting rid of him after this game week. Played Ipswich this week, 11.5% owned. He is a differential, 7.6 million. But with the Chelsea fixtures getting better, I'm looking to bring in Nico. Now, Nicholas Jackson is going to be a much better own from 12 onwards, but it's whether you can start affording these players. But we'll do a bit more of a deep dive in a future video of the Game Week 12 fixture shift and what players you want to really start getting into. Moving on to Wood. Wood has been essential in the last few game weeks. He's been doing so well playing Newcastle. Newcastle don't have the best defensive record, but they played Arsenal last week and they kept them out. So they do look like they're starting to build their shape a bit, and a lot of people are looking at the likes of Isaac going forward. And I be honest, I can't really see a reason not to, other than his price. There are quite a lot of good players in lower price points in around this area of the pitch. And onto our captain as it stands, but not necessarily what we're doing going into the game week, and that is Erling Haaland. 15.3 million, 70% owned, which I don't think is necessarily, I think he's gone down to 68% owned, actually, as a lot of people are getting rid of Haaland. Last I looked, he was the most transferred out player this game week, which is crazy, as Kevin De Bruyne will be coming back into the team very, very soon, if not this week. It's going to be after international break, and he is a must-have. Your decision here is, do you want Haaland or do you want Salah going forward? I can understand both, but I'm telling you there are going to be game weeks that Haaland is going to be essential, and you're not going to be able to bring him in. That's the difference. So I personally like Haaland over Salah, but I might be wrong. On the bench, Verbruggen, Rodgers, Greaves, and Konza. Now, I like Rodgers personally, but not for this game week. Liverpool have the best defensive record in the league, and Rodgers is good, but I don't feel like they're going to be a lot of goals in this game. So Rodgers is stuck to the bench. Likewise with Konza. Konza I do like as a rotation player. He does his job, and Greaves is currently out injured, but hopefully he'll be back soon. And again, nice little cheap player that when he is fit, he does play. We want to look at a few players that you're going to want to look to bring in over the next couple game weeks. So yeah, let's get into that. Let's have a quick look at some of the players we want to bring in. Now let's start with the attackers. These are all per 90 minutes. And these are all non-penalty, expected non-penalty goals. Haaland is leading by all metrics. He is still the leading player in expected goals, non-penalty, and I believe expected goals in general. Wieser is up there. He is definitely a player that I'm looking to bring in as well, but let's just go back to expected non-penalty. Haaland, Wieser, Solanke. Now, Solanke, he is up there in this expected non-penalty. I'll be honest, up until this game week, he has not been amazing. So the stats are saying one thing. I just don't. My feeling along the lines of Solanke going forward isn't great, but if you want to follow the stats, I completely understand that. But me, I'm going to be looking to get Solanke out and bring Nicholas Jackson in, purely because the fixtures going forward for Chelsea are going to be amazing. Watkins is up here, which makes sense. He costs a little bit too much for me at 9 million. And if you look at Nico Jackson, 7.9, you look at Solanke, 7.7, you look at John Risa, 6 million. So if I'm honest, I wouldn't be looking at the likes of Watkins, although he does have some decent fixtures coming up. So possibly a differential there. Welbeck has really been doing well, and I've seen suggestions of taking Haaland out, bringing in Welbeck because their fixtures are all right, and then spreading that wealth throughout your midfield with the likes of Saka, Palmer, Salah, and having Mbomo, having potentially Son. There's so much you can do with that extra because that's quite a lot. But again, it's not something I'm necessarily entertaining. And then next is Havertz. Now, with Havertz, I think this is more of a gut feeling if you're going to bring Havertz in, mainly because Arsenal's fixtures are going to be great from Gameweek 12. The issue lies is until Odegaard's back in the team, they lack creative freedom up front. And if Saka doesn't play for some whatever reason, is he's been picking up a couple injuries, there's a problem here. So Havertz, I'd say get him in once you have an idea on when Odegaard is back, possibly after the international break. But I do like him. Isak is another one that a lot of people are bringing in. I like the look of Isak as well, as he does have expected non-penalty at 0.45 per 90, which is still good. Sorry, 0.48 per 90. Archer, 0.45. But look at the difference in price. 5 million for Archer. Cameron Archer for Southampton is actually very much a differential. He plays, and his fixtures are okay. So I'd say I really like Risa. If you don't have him, it's definitely someone you want to be looking at. But Nico Jackson, for me, purely on fixtures, is amazing. Okay, moving on to some midfielders. Now, Johnson tops the list on expected goals non-penalty for the midfield. 0.52 per 90, which is brilliant. Their fixtures are okay. I don't necessarily like the look of their fixtures going forward, but Johnson is a player that I can see myself holding on to for a bit longer because he is one of their main attacking threats. He's always trying to get him behind. He's always trying to do his thing. Diogo Jota is injured at the moment. Still, non-penalty XG when he does play 0.49, but I would be avoiding the Jotas and the Diazes mainly because their game time. There's no guaranteed game time. Onaslot likes Gakpo. He likes Coney Gakpo. He's starting to introduce Darwin into the squad, and then obviously you have Salah, which he won't bench. So just purely on minutes, I am avoiding the likes of Jota and Diaz. Garnacho is actually becoming more of an option, mainly because of this Manchester United manager rebound. But his expected goals non-penalty is still 0.45, so he is doing the right things to show stats-wise why you should be at least looking at a Garnacho. Someone that's not on this list that I actually like the look of, and that is Bruno Fernandes. Mainly because with Bruno he's what makes everything tick in that midfield. And he's starting to pass the eye test more than the stats test. That's a gut feeling. I think Bruno is going to start showing a bit more class. But that's still to be seen. I don't really have any stats to back that up. That's just from my eyes. And then we have Mohamed Salah. Now, this is purely on expected goals non-penalty. So as far as that, he lies fifth in expected goals non-penalty in the midfielders section. We look at Salah. He's got expected goals non-penalty. Where are we? 0.41. again, he's a player of these that is going to look to get a few more goals. But this is the thing. If you look at Salah, 12.8 million, Johnson tops the list. And his price is 6.7 million. I mean, it's a big difference in price. But Salah is going to play, and he's playing for a team that is trying to win the Premier League. So over the long haul, Salah is going to score more points than Johnson. That's just the way it is. If we look at our expected assists, on the other hand, Savio tops the list. Now, Savio has been really starting to come through. This is obviously now all expected. It isn't necessarily what his assists is. So he's obviously doing things to show that he can get some assists, but it's not realized necessarily. So his points aren't realized. He's not really topping out with points, but this is someone that we can look forward at, and potentially, if it all comes together, it's a player to look at. I personally don't like the idea of Savio, mainly because it's Man City, Pep Roulette. You can't guarantee anything, especially now the fixtures are going to start getting a bit tighter coming into Christmas. I don't want to have Savio not play at 6.5 million. There's other players I'd rather have. Maddison is an interesting pick, but again, I don't necessarily like Maddison going forward. I mean, he did score, but with the Spurs fixtures, it's just not an ideal person to be bringing in right now. I'd be looking at the likes of Bukayo Saka, because I know a lot of people got rid of him. You're going to want to bring him in now. Game week 12 on, if I'm honest, game week 12, you can do without him. But game week 13 is a must. You must have him from game week 13 because the fixtures are just unbelievable. And with Odegaard coming back, Saka is a must, absolute must. On to McNeil. Now, McNeil has decent fixtures, but with McNeil, he is part of everything that Everton do. Ultimately, Everton are not a good team, but they score goals. And McNeil is part of them. He's always getting in and around the goal. He's always causing problems. And he has been showing some points. I'm not too bothered. Got Martinelli, but Martinelli, now that players are starting to get a bit more fit, like the likes of Odegaard, just not guaranteed minutes-wise. Son is a interesting pick as he will be classified as a differential, even though he costs 9.9 million. I don't like the look of, like I've said, the Tottenham players. If I was going to do one of them, it's going to be Johnson. He's reasonable priced, and he is actually, stats-wise, doing better than Heung-min Son. Moving on to Mbomo. I see with Mbomo, he's actually bottom of this. So 10 in expected assists, but expected goals, expected assists, all this comes into it, and his fixtures are great. So Mbomo, I still think, is a must-have. You must have Mbomo in your team, at least for the short term now. Now on to the defenders. Now, problem with defenders is it's ultimately about clean sheets, but I don't feel like you can rely on clean sheets. So I'm going to rely on something like expected assists. At the top of the list, it is Trent, for obvious reasons. Trent creates the most goal scoring opportunities as a defender, but that just hasn't come to fruition. He just hasn't been performing to the level that, as a defender that costs 7 million, we need. So I don't recommend Trent as a option because the likes of Leif Davis, who creates opportunities at 0.21 per 90, it's not amazing. It's not something to shout home about, but it is a metric outside of clean sheets because we cannot guarantee clean sheets. I'd rather take the chance of a Leif Davis doing something than a Trent doing something for the difference in price. I'd rather have cheaper defenders, premium midfielders, or premium attackers, or mainly premium midfielders and a premium attacker. I don't feel like we should be prioritizing defenders at the moment. So yeah, this is kind of where my head is at. These are players that I'm looking at going forward. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, please like, subscribe, get in the comments. Speak to you soon. Thanks a lot, guys. Peace.